Audie Leon Murphy, born June 20, 1925 in Kingston, Texas, is one of the most revered war heroes in American history. But his life was not without its share of deep sorrow. Audie's greatest sorrow came not only from the wounds he suffered in war, but also from his lasting psychological trauma, especially post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, a concept that was not yet clearly defined in his time. Raised in a poor farming family, Audie was the seventh of 12 children born to Emmett Barry Murphy and Josie Bell Killian. His father, Emmett, frequently left home, leaving his mother, Josie, to raise the children alone in poverty. When Audie was 16, his mother died of illness, a loss that would plague him for the rest of his life. He once shared that his mother's death was a great shock because she was the only source of support during the difficult years of his childhood. In addition, the memories of war never left him. Audie fought in World War II at a very young age, witnessing the death of his comrades, the brutality of the battlefield, and moments of near death. These experiences haunted him throughout his life, leading to nightmares, insomnia, and a deep sense of loneliness. After the war, he became a hero in the eyes of the public, but inside, he felt trapped by painful memories. Audie once said, "I couldn't sleep. I couldn't forget what happened. I just wanted peace." But it never came. This sadness was not only personal, but also represented thousands of other veterans who struggled with the invisible scars of war. Audie also suffered from the pain of not being able to fully integrate into civilian life after the war. Although he was hailed as a hero, he often felt out of place in a society where people praised his exploits, but few understood what he had gone through. He confided to friends that he felt like he didn't belong anywhere, a sense of isolation that he carried with him for the rest of his life. His acting career and subsequent financial difficulties only deepened this sadness, as he faced the pressure of maintaining a heroic image while struggling with personal problems. Audie's life was a series of harsh challenges, from a poor childhood, the loss of his family, to the psychological trauma of war. His greatest sadness was perhaps his inability to find inner peace, something that fame, money, or medals could not bring. Sleepless nights, recurring nightmares, and feelings of isolation became an inseparable part of his life, making him a symbol not only of courage, but also of silent suffering. Audie Murphy's career is an inspiring story, but also a story of ups and downs. He is known as one of the most decorated soldiers in the history of the United States military and a famous Hollywood actor, but his path was not a smooth one. Audie joined the military in 1942 at the age of 17, after being rejected by the Navy and Marine Corps because of his small stature. Determined, he joined the United States Army and quickly distinguished himself on the battlefields of Europe. During World War II, Audie participated in many major campaigns, including the invasions of Sicily, Italy, and France. His most notable action came on January 26, 1945, in the Holtzwihr Forest, France, when he single-handedly held off a platoon of German infantry and 6 enemy tanks. Standing on a burning tank, Audie used his machine gun to stop the German attack, protecting his comrades and winning the battle for his unit. This action earned him the Medal of Honor, the United States military's highest decoration. In total, Audie received 33 medals and honors, including the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, and numerous other honors from the United States and its allies. He became a symbol of courage and sacrifice, revered as a national hero. However, these feats did not come without a price. Audie once said that each medal was a memory of fallen friends, and he felt the burden of being seen as a hero when he himself did not feel worthy. After the war, Audie came to Hollywood's attention for his heroic story. In 1948, he signed a contract with Universal Studios and began his acting career. His first film, Beyond Glory, 1948, received positive reviews, and he quickly became a star with his leading role in The Red Badge of Courage, 1951, a film based on the novel by Stephen Crane. The autobiographical film To Hell and Back, 1955, in which Audie played himself, became one of the most successful war films of its time, breaking Universal's box office records. Over the course of his career, Audie starred in more than 40 films, mostly war films and westerns. He was praised for his honesty and ability to immerse himself in a role, especially in his wartime roles, where he brought a sense of authenticity to his own experiences. However, Audie was not entirely satisfied with his acting career. He felt he was limited to hero roles, and producers often did not give him the opportunity to show his versatility in acting. This left him feeling trapped in the image that the public had assigned him. Despite his success, Audie's career was not without its struggles. After the 1950s, his acting career began to slow down as the war and cowboy genres lost their appeal. He starred in a number of failed projects, including poorly received films such as The Guns of Fort Petticoat, 1957, and The Quiet American, 1958. These failures led to Audie's financial difficulties, especially as he developed a habit of spending lavishly and making unsuccessful investments in business ventures, including a failing ranch. One of the moments that made Audie cry was when he realized he could not escape the shadow of the war hero. In an interview, he shared that he cried when he read articles praising him because he felt that they did not reflect the real him, a man struggling with psychological trauma and the pressure of fame. In addition, Audie also had difficulty coping with PTSD. He once admitted that he used tranquilizers to control nightmares, but this led to dependence and made him feel out of control. Audie also faced legal and financial problems. He was sued for debts and even arrested for violence during an argument in 1960. These events damaged his image and made him feel ashamed. However, Audie persevered. He began writing poetry and music to express his feelings and participated in charity activities to help other veterans. These efforts show his resilient spirit even as he faces constant hardships. Audie Murphy was not just a soldier or an actor, but a man who always sought to leave a positive mark on the world. One of his greatest achievements was raising awareness about the mental health of veterans. At a time when PTSD was not widely recognized, Audie bravely shared his psychological struggles, from nightmares to feelings of loneliness. He hoped that his story would encourage other veterans to seek help and push society to pay more attention to the invisible wounds of war. While he could not completely change the medical system at that time, his efforts laid the foundation for future discussions about PTSD. In addition, Audie always tried to be a good father and a devoted husband, even though his personal life was not always smooth. He wanted to give his children, Terrence Michael Murphy and James Shannon Murphy, a better life than his own poor childhood. Audie often spent time playing with them, telling them stories, and teaching them about courage and honesty. Although his busy work and financial difficulties sometimes made him absent, Audie always tried to compensate with love and care. In his career, Audie also longed to be recognized as a true artist, not just a war hero on the silver screen. He tried his hand at more diverse roles and even participated in writing and producing films. Although not all of his efforts were successful, his spirit of constantly learning and challenging himself was a remarkable achievement. Audie also wrote an autobiography, To Hell and Back, not only to tell his story, but also to honor the soldiers who fought alongside him. This book became a classic, helping later generations better understand the sacrifices of soldiers in World War II. Ultimately, Audie always tried to live up to his values: honesty, resilience, and compassion. He regularly participated in charity events, especially those supporting veterans and orphans. Despite his difficult personal life, Audie never stopped trying to become a better person, leaving a legacy that was not only about his achievements, but also about his kindness. Audie Murphy's love life was as complex and emotional as his career. He married twice to two completely different women, and each marriage left a deep mark on his life. Audie met actress Wanda Hendricks in 1946, when both were at the peak of their careers. Wanda, a young Hollywood star, was drawn to Audie's sincerity and heroic story. They quickly became engaged and married in 1949 in a wedding that was covered by the press. However, the marriage quickly hit a snag. Wanda, though she loved Audie, could not cope with his psychological problems. Audie's nightmares often left him in a state of panic, sometimes with a gun in his hand, which frightened Wanda. She once said that Audie often talked about the war in his sleep, and she felt helpless to help him overcome his trauma. Their marriage was also affected by his busy work schedule and the pressures of fame. Wanda wanted Audie to be a traditional husband, but he became caught up in his acting career and personal problems. After 2 years of marriage, they divorced in 1951 without having any children. Audie was devastated by the breakup, especially given the negative press coverage of their marriage. He has said he felt he had failed as a husband, and this sadness lasted for many years. In 1951, Audie married Pamela Archer, a gentle and patient flight attendant. The marriage lasted until his death in 1971 and was considered a highlight of his life. Pamela understood and accepted Audie's mental difficulties, often being there to comfort him during difficult times. They had 2 children, Terrence Michael Murphy and James Shannon Murphy, and Audie loved his small family very much. However, the marriage to Pamela was not without its challenges. Financial problems, Audie's dependence on tranquilizers, and his short temper sometimes caused tension in the family. Pamela once shared that there were nights when Audie lay awake, sitting alone in the dark, and she could only be there to listen. However, Pamela was always a strong support for Audie, and he often expressed gratitude for her patience. The greatest sadness of their marriage was perhaps Audie's inability to completely escape the ghosts of war, which sometimes kept him distant from his wife and children despite his love for them. Audie's love and marriage is a story of the struggle to find peace in a scarred heart. Despite his failures, he always tried to be a better husband, and his love for Pamela and their children is an important part of his legacy. Audie Murphy was the father of 2 sons, Terrence Michael Murphy and James Shannon Murphy, both born during his marriage to Pamela Archer. Despite his life's challenges, Audie always tried to be a devoted and loving father. Terrence Michael Murphy, known as Terry, was born in 1952, Audie's eldest son. Terry grew up admiring his father, but also aware of the difficulties Audie faced. Audie played baseball with Terry, telling him stories about the war and life, but always tried to shield him from the sad details. Terry once shared that his father was a strict but loving man, always teaching his brothers the value of honesty and perseverance. James Shannon Murphy, born in 1954, was also very close to his father. Audie often took James horseback riding, one of his favorite activities. Despite his busy career, Audie always tried to spend time with his children, although sometimes nightmares and financial pressures made him distant. James once said that he remembered most the moments when his father laughed with his cousins, those rare moments when Audie seemed to escape the ghosts of the past. However, Audie's role as a father was not always perfect. Psychological and financial difficulties sometimes made him absent from his children's lives. Terry and James both knew that their father loved them, but they also knew that he was struggling with issues they could not fully understand. Audie once told Pamela that he feared that his children would grow up not knowing who he really was, not the hero on the silver screen, but a father with his own flaws and pain. Yet Audie left a great legacy for his children. He taught them about courage, resilience, and the importance of helping others. Terry and James are proud of their father, not only for his accomplishments, but also for his relentless efforts to be a better father, despite the difficulties he faced. Audie's eldest son, Terrence Michael Murphy, has spoken extensively about his father in interviews and later memoirs. According to Terry, his father's greatest sadness was not only the memories of war, but also the feeling of being trapped in the hero image that the public had placed on him. Terry said that Audie often talked about wanting to be seen as a normal person with mistakes and emotions rather than a perfect icon. "My father used to say that he was not the hero that people thought he was. He just did what needed to be done, but the price was too high," Terry shared. Terry also emphasized that Audie suffered from psychological trauma that he could not share with his family. He recalled nights when Audie sat alone in the living room, staring into space, with a cigarette in his hand. Terry once asked his father about those moments, and Audie simply replied, "Son, there are things I can't explain. Just know that I love you and your brother." Terry understood that his father was trying to protect his cousins from painful memories, but this also made him feel an invisible distance between him and his father. In addition, Terry also mentioned Audie's sadness regarding his career. He said that Audie was very disappointed that he could not escape the role of war hero to try more diverse roles. "My father wanted to be recognized as a real actor, not just a soldier on screen. He cried when he read the reviews, saying that he could only play himself," Terry shared. These words show that Audie longed to be recognized for his talent, not just for his past. Terry also emphasized that, despite his sadness, Audie always tried to leave a positive legacy for his family and society. He was proud of his father's efforts to raise awareness about PTSD and help other veterans. According to Terry, Audie was a loving father, a brave soldier, and above all, a compassionate human being, despite suffering that few people could understand. Audie Murphy's life is an inspiring yet tragic journey. He rose from a poor Texas boy to America's most revered war hero, Hollywood star, and devoted father. But behind the glamour were psychological scars, personal failures, and a relentless search for peace. Audie's greatest sorrows, war memories, loneliness, and feeling trapped in his hero persona, are testament to the price of courage and sacrifice. His career is a story of resilience, from his exploits on the battlefield to his roles on the silver screen. Despite many setbacks, Audie never stopped trying to leave a positive legacy, not only for his family, but for veterans and future generations. His love and marriage, though challenging, are testaments to his devotion and loyalty to his loved ones. His sons, Terrence and James, were his greatest inspirations, and his legacy lives on in their hearts. When Audie died in a plane crash on May 28, 1971, he left behind a story not only of triumph, but also of kindness, resilience, and the relentless effort to overcome pain. Audie Murphy was not only an American hero, but also a symbol of ordinary people, with dreams, sorrows, and the desire to live a meaningful life. Audie's greatest sorrow, however, was not limited to the loss of his family. His years in World War II left him with deep psychological trauma, now known as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. As a young man, Audie witnessed the deaths of dozens of his comrades, faced fierce battles, and nearly lost his life several times. One of his most haunting memories was the battle in Holtzwihr Forest, France, in 1945, when he single-handedly fought off an entire German platoon. Despite his victory, the images of fallen soldiers and the roar of war never left his mind. Audie was often awakened by nightmares in which he saw the faces of his fallen comrades. "I can't sleep without seeing them," he once confided to his wife, Pamela Archer. "They're there, in my head, every night." After the war, Audie became a national hero, but that glory became a burden. Society hailed him as an invincible symbol, but few understood that he struggled with feelings of loneliness and alienation. Audie once said, "People call me a hero, but I am just a man trying to survive." He felt he did not belong in the civilian world, where people could not understand what he had been through. These psychological traumas caused him to fall into a spiral of depression, insomnia, and sometimes dependence on tranquilizers. In his final years, he often sat alone in the dark, smoking and lost in dark thoughts. Audie's sadness was also amplified by his financial and career difficulties after the war. Despite being a Hollywood star, he often faced debt and failed business ventures, such as a failed farm in California. These pressures left him feeling that he could not live up to the expectations of his family and society. He cried in moments of despair, especially when thinking about other soldiers who did not have the same chance of returning home. Audie's greatest sadness, perhaps, was his inability to find inner peace, something that fame, medals, or money could not bring. Audie met actress Wanda Hendricks in 1946, when both were at the height of their careers. Wanda, a young Hollywood star, was drawn to Audie's sincerity and heroic story. They quickly became engaged and married in 1949 in a wedding that was widely covered by the press. However, the marriage quickly hit a snag. Wanda, though in love with Audie, could not cope with his psychological problems. Audie's nightmares often left him in a state of panic, sometimes with a gun in his hand, which frightened Wanda. She once said that Audie often talked about the war in his sleep, and she felt helpless to help him overcome his trauma. Their marriage was also affected by his busy work schedule and the pressures of fame. Wanda wanted Audie to be a traditional husband, but he was caught up in his acting career and personal problems. After 2 years of marriage, they divorced in 1951, having no children. Audie was devastated by the breakup, especially when the press reported their marriage in negative terms. He once said that he felt he had failed as a husband, and this sadness lasted for many years. In 1951, Audie married Pamela Archer, a flight attendant with a gentle and patient personality. This marriage lasted until his death in 1971 and was considered a highlight of his life. Pamela understood and accepted Audie's psychological difficulties, often being there to comfort him during difficult times. They had 2 children, Terrence Michael Murphy and James Shannon Murphy, and Audie loved his small family very much. However, his marriage to Pamela was not without its challenges. Audie's financial problems, his dependence on sedatives, and his temper sometimes caused tension in the family. Pamela once shared that there we